Hey friends, Checkly's browser checks enable you to test and monitor your sites and apps from around the world on a schedule to get alerted when you have issues in production. And Checkly leverages Microsoft's Playwright to control headless Chrome. But what if you haven't used Playwright before? Let me show you in this video how you can use code generation to give your synthetic monitoring a head start. Sounds good? Let's go. We are here in my Checkly account, and as you see, I have 3 API checks that run on different schedules from different locations to guarantee that these API endpoints are up and running. But I'm lacking a browser check here right now, so let's create one. To create a new browser check, press this blue button, the plus button, and choose browser check. If you now want to, you can use one of our pre-baked templates. Here we have wait for an element to become visible. Here, this template shows you how to emulate a mobile device. But in this example, I want to start from scratch because we will leverage code generation. Here in the browser check editor, we find the Playwright code that will power our synthetic monitoring. And if we want to configure how often this browser check will run or from which locations, you can always go to the settings and tweak them to your liking. But how could we now fill this browser check with life using code generation? Let's head over to my editor and find out. I have here an example project that also uses the Checkly CLI. So if you want to learn more on how you can control the entire monitoring in code, make sure to check out Monitoring as Code and the Checkly CLI. But here right now, we want to focus on code generation. And that's why when I go to my package.json, you will see that I have Playwright installed. And most importantly, this project uses Playwright 140. Why is that important? I will show you some things that are pretty new in Playwright. So if you want to follow along, make sure that you also have Playwright 140 or above. And because Playwright is installed in this project, I can go to my terminal and I can call npx playwright codegen, and I will navigate it already to checklyhq.com. So let's hit enter and let's see what happens. Playwright codegen now kicked off a new Chromium window. And you see that there's a little toolbar on top, and there's also some funky stuff happening when you hover around. But also next to it, there's the Playwright inspector that you can use to record all the actions that will be taken in this Chromium session here on the left. So when we now, for example, click on product, and we go to synthetic monitoring, you see here the Playwright code that is needed to control Chrome in exactly the same way as you just did. But since now version 1.40, Playwright also gives you the ability to add assertions in your codegen session. So as we're now here on the synthetic monitoring page, we can, for example, click here, the assert text button, and we can assert that this headline here includes the words synthetic monitoring. If I now say that this looks good, let's have a look at the inspector. Here we have the locator that is needed to match this H1. And it's also adding this assertion to your Playwright code. Similarly, if I would want to check that this Start for Free button is visible, I can click here, Assert Visibility, and I can click the Start for Free button. And you see again that Playwright will give its best to record and give you the code that is needed to get rolling with your Playwright scripting. And lastly, there's also this third one, which is Assert Value. If we continue our test case now and we click the Login button, and we interact with this input field here. So let me enter my email address. And I love that it's filling it in real time on the right side. And we say checklyhq.com. You can now press assert value and use this input field. And now you see it similarly. Playwright will locate this input element and it will check that it has this value that I just provided. So overall, CodeGen just got a whole lot more powerful because you can now pick locators, you can add assertions for visibility, for text, and for value. And now that we have our Playwright script, I can copy everything in here, I can go back into Checkly, I can replace everything, and I can run it. So let's see what happens. So this generated Playwright code is now running in the Checkly infrastructure. There's a headless Chrome spinning up somewhere in the cloud. And when we now have a look at the test report, we can have a look at Playwright's killer feature trace files to see if this actually worked. So here we now have our test session, and here we see that it opened the navigation, it navigated to synthetic monitoring, and then it opened up a new window and it checked that all of these things were working properly. And creating this browser check literally now took me 30 seconds clicking around a little bit. And I think this is pretty magical. The last thing to do now is give our browser check a name. So let's call it Checkly Home and create this browser check. So when we now go to the Checkly dashboard, we have here our synthetic monitor, which is currently pending. But here we see that the first run from Frankfurt, Germany already succeeded. And this is all it takes to create your first browser check with Playwright codegen. But there are a few things that I still want to point out. When you look at this generated code, you might want to treat this as a starting point for your Playwright scripting and for your synthetic monitoring. A lot of times you can refactor things to use a proper variable, and Playwright is just giving its best to transform your actions into code, but I highly recommend to always still have a look if this code does what it is supposed to do. And if you're a VS Code user, you should definitely check out the Playwright extension that allows you to also record new test cases and debug them right from within your editor. And I'm using that almost every day. And that's it for today. So whenever you want to create a new browser check and you don't have an existing Playwright codebase, I highly recommend to check out Playwright codegen, because you can then copy and paste your generated Playwright scripts into Checkly as we just did and run Playwright on a schedule to really be sure that all your production sites are up and running from anywhere in the world. If you have any comments or questions, drop them below and I will talk to you very soon again about monitoring, testing and Checkly. See you soon.